Hello, and welcome to the Subbed Podcast, attempting to merge neuroscience with sock puppets. Happy episode, everybody.
Happy
Cheers.
episode. Cheers.
You don't have to join us in the drink, but, you know.
You're more than welcome to, if you'd like, with a drink of your choice.
Indeed. Welcome to the podcast. The Subvert, as always. I am Aaron Stewart, here with my lovely co-host, Kristen Rumor.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, and you have been having an existential crisis that we felt we needed to share with everybody.
But before I share, make sure you hit that subscribe button.
Me and my forgetting all of the rules and protocols.
Exactly, yeah. The YouTube gods require us
to feed the beast. Feed the beast.
Hit that subscribe button, like, share, all of the above. Yes.
Absolutely.
So you can hear more about our existential crises.
We're going to have more of them. I'm sure this won't be the last one that we'll broadcast out to the
life
universe.
Is kind of just one big existential crisis at the moment.
Well, and this was kind of, you started the story and I immediately was just like, oh, we got to hit record on this. We're recording. Okay, good. Right. Just because it feels like this is something that everybody out there will relate to, in some way, where we are all having kind of just a crisis of one form or another. It feels like we're kind of moving from one crisis to the next, even, which has been so much fun for everybody, just careening through, just like pinballs bouncing from one. So tell me about your crisis.
Okay. Well, I was basically like, I just had this moment the other day, and it was just like, all of a sudden I was like, I don't really know who I am. And it was a really intense, like, smack in the face thought that obviously sent me down a
no one out there has ever related to that in any way whatsoever. We all are very clear, very, secure in who we are. And so there never has to be any of these kind of like, whoa, you're the what?
Yeah.
Yeah. So please explain for those, who haven't had any of this.
Sure. Yeah. Well, existential crises take all sorts of forms.
Well, exactly.
Mine was very much like, I started thinking about it and I realized how, I guess, egotistical maybe I had either become or I was just feeling, where I felt like I was so just like in my own little shell of things. And there's a lot of stuff constantly going through my head. And I like to think that I'm someone that does have compassion and think about others. And, that's my job. So I certainly hope I do. Right. But I just had this moment of, oh my God, I've been so wrapped up in myself. And it just, sent me down this whole rabbit hole of how did this happen? Right? Like just feeling really closed off. And whether this is true or not is another thing. It could just be my brain, going a little bit crazy and telling me lies. But it really upset me. And I just sat there, and this went on for a few days where I honestly just like, I felt like this horrible person all of a sudden. And I was like, am I just incredibly selfish? Have I been neglecting, like all of my friends and my co-host and everything? And I was just like, oh, and I really had a mental breakdown about it.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh,
right? And that, right, like, again, I think everybody out there has had these moments where it just feels like you got to just, break down or everything's going to...
Sure.
Yeah, right? And I guess it mostly just comes down to, I'm here for you if you ever need to, and try to be there for each other. But again, it's one of those things where they're going to happen.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And so I always feel like in a lot of ways, this life is more built around dealing with these things when they happen versus trying to act like it's never going to, right? And not preparing yourself for.
Yeah.
So.
It's a good way to keep yourself in check, to look at it maybe from a positive side.
Yeah.
Because when I did really get down to thinking about it, I realized I have been very kind of self-absorbed in a lot of ways, right? And we all are, of course.
And there's times when that's necessary.
Of course, yeah.
And this is the thing where, and recognizing it, thank you, appreciate it, right? That at least you're taking the time to, hey, and now it's a matter of what do I do with it from now?
Yeah.
Right? Like I've acknowledged that there's something going on, can I reach out to, can I tell,
Well, and it was, for me, it's how did it get here?
Yeah.
Right? Because it was like, I didn't even realize what was happening until, I had this moment. And I did kind of tie it all back into, I was spending a lot more time online. I was doing a lot more, and a lot of it was, for development, obviously, of this show.
Absolutely.
And it's not, the editing and everything like that isn't the problem. It's while I'm actually on the computer doing that, I get, sidetracked of, oh, over here. Okay. Oh, I need to be, promoting this on the social media. But while I'm here, I'm going to be stuck scrolling, and then you're rabbit holing. And then there's this article which suggests to you this other article. And it's all in, the name of educating myself and trying to, provide better topics for you, gentle viewers. But that was definitely what it came down to when I sat and thought about it. And I went, oh my God, my screen time has been actually through the roof over the last couple of months. And now it's culminated in this, oh my God, all I can think about now is me in this own little, I guess, social media world. And it's really diminished my capacity to think about everyone else in my life. And that was really scary.
Which is just such a strange side effect of what is supposed to be this social media where we're talking to and getting better acquainted with supposedly these people that we've got in our social group, right? And it's funny how, right, like this actually led to you feeling less connected to.
Oh, yeah.
And and I mean, again, right? No one out there has ever experienced this before,
never,
right?
Never. This is all shocking news to you all.
Absolutely, absolutely. Where and that's kind of the thing where and until you have that epiphany of like, oh shit, in 2 months, hey, I mean, bravo for only taking 2 months to figure it out, right? Because and it's going to be an ongoing thing for all of us now. Is how do we deal with this? Is this something that we just are now, or do we have any kind of control over this thing? Because it really feels like they've engineered this specifically to make it really hard for and I mean I my ADHD is just bred for this, right? Like I have that exact same problem where it's like I've got 15 things on the go at any one time because I can never just focus on the one and just get that done. Right. So and that I think is just fuel for. And I think a lot of us now are finding, it may not even be ADHD. It's just that this thing has bred us to not have this ability to even resist this stupid thing.
Well, that's it. You don't realize how it creeps into your life. And like, I'm someone that usually prides myself on, trying to stay away from it, as I've probably ranted plenty of times on this show, right? And then to, find myself having fallen into it so easily, right? So then there was that little guilt, beating myself up about it because it's, oh, Kristen, like, better, right? Like,
well,
you're the
worst
one
part,
preaching this to everybody.
Yeah, but like you shouldn't. My problem now is it's like recycling. Like they make us feel guilty for not recycling instead of just producing less shit.
Yeah.
The idea that it's your fault for falling prey to this engineered thing that they've made specifically to do this specifically to you is just like, it's just so ludicrous to me that we feel guilt about being lured in by these companies that are specifically designed to lure us.
Yeah.
It's like people falling for online scams, and it's like, well, yeah, I can totally see how, if you want to help someone, you have this, right? Like you're trying to be nice and somebody came along and you were just like, oh, they seem nice, right? Like, yeah, they would never do that to me, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's just kind of where, how do you not fall into that trap when they've specifically, like they've done this 100, they know how to tweak you. They've got all the data. Yeah. They've gathered up every single data point that they can to point to, not you specifically, but they know you.
Yeah.
And that's, it's kind of scary to just think of what they're doing with that. And again, like knowing that this is a thing, you're still unable, the people that study this, that, how this social media creep, just are still unable to stop themselves, knowing the harm doesn't inoculate yourself from it, unfortunately. And that's kind of a like, how are we going to make this thing,
And it was that shocking, that who am I thought that came in my head that was really just the biggest, because it was, okay, who am I without all of this, right? Because that's where the rabbit hole led me down was, how many of the thoughts that I have that are what I end up conveying, through this platform and in my daily life, how much of them are mine and how much of it is actually manufactured through the things that are shown to me, because everything that is, on the internet is curated to you in one way or another.
The outrage machine.
Right? And I'm not even just talking social media. It's, you're going to do research and you're just typing search terms. What is popping up is specifically curated to you as well. Like, there's no such thing as just, it's not like going into a library where you're just, pulling out books anymore. It's whatever's popping up on your search results is yours. And if, the person next to you were to put in the same terms, their results would be totally different. So it was really this, what is my identity now? What is it formed on?
Well, and so just so you know, any of the searches on my computer are all podcast related. They're just so everybody is very clear.
Popping up on the screen now,
I'm just doing research
history.
doing research for the podcast. That's all it is. Just every one of them. Just so you know. Just so you know.
Research.
Okay, deleting. Anyway, clearing the cache. Here we go. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's just
absolutely.
Again, it's not even limited to just your social media, your internet. It's, we're pretty much all using streaming services now. Very few people have cable anymore. So what you're choosing to watch, your movies and shows, that's all collecting data, which is being sold, which is being fed back into this. And now it's showing you, like what products you want to buy and where you want a holiday and all of these things you didn't really know you wanted until, these little subtle things add up. And it's just, it's a really intense, crazy thought.
Well, it's insidious, and that's the problem, right? Where like you said, it's that creep where it just kind of, and you'll be good for a little while, and then it'll just be that you'll get that notification, and then you just have that trigger, and unfortunately that's how they've engineered it to work those triggers to make it so that you just have no choice but to answer that ping.
Yeah. Or you just don't even realize it's there.
Well, that's the worst part, right? Is months in now, and you're going, oh wait, I'm still, oh right, I had stuff to do, right? Like, oh, life has kind of just gone past me as I was, right? Like you get the Rip Van Winkle kind of effect where, it's just it disappeared, and now you're going and the problem there again with the tying this back to the beginning, where the logical conclusion of this is that you have less connection to the people that you were trying to connect with in the first place.
Yeah.
And that unfortunately is kind of the problem with this thing, is that it doesn't actually lead to the result that you're hoping to get to when you're getting into this thing. You're trying to find, more connection, get better, learn more, build your circle, right? Yeah. And instead, all you're doing is just building this facade in front of that can just be torn away as soon as you stop using the online.
Yeah.
As soon as you put your phone away, those people are non-existent, essentially. In most cases.
I'm like, hopefully that's not the case for everyone.
Well, I mean,
I hope you have real life friends.
ask any of them to help you move. That's my main, right? Like if you could talk to any of your Facebook friends and they would absolutely help you move, then yeah, for sure, that's right, definitely. But unfortunately, it just feels like yeah. So
yeah,
and so that's so. Do you have tips? Again, like knowing the cure, unfortunately, doesn't help. So what do we do for? Do you set timers? Do you try to, have an hour's worth of social media a day? I mean, for people that use social media for their jobs, is there any way of getting around? I mean, can we find some way of making this less of a Pavlovian response where that bell rings and we start immediately going, oh shit, right?
Yeah. Well, that's it. How do you scale it back? Or is it even possible to separate these things in your mind, right? And that's kind of the scary part, because I did think I was really good at doing that. I thought I had it all.
I'm sure we all do.
I was like,
all do.
I've learned the way. It's easy. You can just separate it. And then it was again that humble moment of, nope, you're absolutely no better than anyone else. We're all in the same boat here.
And that, I think, is probably part of the cure is just recognizing that we are all in the same boat, and the only cure for this thing is each other.
Yeah.
Realistically, it's replacing the social media with social, like actually being out with people. That's kind of the only cure for this thing.
Well, and that was my immediate kind of response to it, was like, okay, what do we do? Go from here, right? If this was all true, right? Like if you have been neglecting your friends and you've been very self-absorbed and everything, what's the solution? And it was like, go and get genuine contact, right?
Yeah.
Like go and reconnect with those people that
Go
you
hug someone.
felt you've been neglecting and all of this, right? And it turned out that it was mostly in my head because, all of my friends were like, what do you mean? Because I'm apologizing to everybody in my life. As you know, you got my apology message and everyone was like, what? Like,
It's fine. Don't worry about
what
it.
are
It's
you
cool.
even apologizing for, right? And so I kind of realized that, okay, that, was something I maybe made up. But it
Well, and
made it
that's, yeah.
like, it was still, again, that warning sign where,
Mhm.
like, had I maybe not, maybe it would have gotten to the point where,
Oh,
all of my
absolutely.
friends were going, okay, Kristen's become a little bit too,
It's been 6 months and I haven't heard from you.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or all she talks about is herself. She doesn't care about, because that's what was going through my head, right?
And I can't see that being like the social media being, stuck in scrolling is one thing, right? Like, but yeah, I can't see you being the one to just give me a minute, okay? I'm busy. I'm busy scrolling. Okay, God, fuck off.
Well, it's because you get in your own, like, you get
Yeah,
in your head
absolutely,
about it,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
can't help but start to compare yourself to all of, again, this information. Social media is just one aspect of it, but the whole plethora of digital information that's thrown at you
Mm.
in all sorts of ways, you're always comparing yourself in one way or another, whether it's, physically, that's the obvious one, or, like, what professionally, like what you should be producing, what you're seeing, all just everything in life you're comparing constantly, and that's how I ended up. I can only speak for me in this place of thinking too much about myself was because everything was a constant subconscious level of comparison, right? I'm looking at this, how does that apply to me? Okay, how do I stand in relation to this? And
Mm-hmm.
so it was like all of this, like, flashing lights going off everywhere
Mm-hmm.
stimulates a me response over and over. And no wonder we have ended up in a culture that is very self absorbed. Because again, you're forging these neural pathways by this is reinforcement over and over.
Mm-hmm.
Ping, me, everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's very difficult to look at any information and just objectively look at it and go, oh, that's nice. No, in some way you're going, how does this relate?
Well, I think that's part of the condition, right? I mean, that I think is just who we are. I doubt there's any time that we're even able to have a truly altruistic thought go through our heads in
Yeah.
some way or another. And this is, I think, just a biological imperative more than anything. We can, kind of offset that a little bit with our higher functions, hopefully, right?
In
but
theory.
but for the most part, I mean, when you're making a decision about realistically anything, it mostly comes down to how does this benefit me,
Yeah.
right? And again, I think that actually kind of benefits us in a lot of ways because, even for those who are helping others, knowing what benefits me kind of does help you in some ways because it means that we're trying to work towards something that, right, like, and it may not be something that you completely agree with, but we can have now a conversation about that,
Hmm.
about what really we're looking for in the end, right, versus this superficial, right, not really being able to even have that conversation about, no, that's fine, just give me a minute, you
Yeah.
know and not even being able to figure out what you might actually want that would actually really benefit you in any, sorry, just was that was right, oh sorry, we were
Oh,
talking,
are
right,
you
right,
still
right,
here?
yeah, we were doing a podcast. And like I said, like that kind of becomes the issue where we're just trying to figure out, like, what do, like you said, who am I, what do I really want from this, what's the end goal of us doing this silly thing where we come here and I sweat in front of a camera for, like, what's the goal of this, is it altruistic, is it really just helping you, or am I here just to put on my new leather pants and my nice shirt, and is it just for our own benefit that we're doing this thing, or
Mhm.
is there an actual altruistic kernel to this where we're actually trying to, you know
Well, I mean, that's why we started it, so yeah.
but again,
There's
like,
always going to be a little bit probably of
exactly,
ego involved, but
exactly,
for the most part, that's the whole goal was to be able to have these conversations and
yeah.
share, and then hopefully, it sparks something with the audience going, okay, yeah, I felt this way too. Okay, great. It's not
And
just me.
yeah, I was gonna say, I hope you watch this entirely selfishly. you know, in order to benefit yourself, you know, and everyone else can, if they don't want to listen to this, they can go fuck themselves, right? I mean, you know,
That's
but
our new slogan. If you don't want
wanna
to listen to this, you can go fuck yourself.
which I think was implied
Perfect.
anyway. I mean, well, I think we should definitely have a cheers to that. You know, if
Cheers to that.
you're
This is
not
the
listening,
tiniest little cup I've ever seen.
indeed, my little baby Masons.
That's fantastic.
Wait, I get my pinky up.
Sorry, I was very unladylike in that set.
Yeah, so I think that's a logical place to
Is it? It was
drop
just a rant.
that
Welcome to a little piece of Kristen's head. That's what that episode was.
Well, again, I think this
Who
is
am I?
this
What am I
is
doing?
basically kind of, you know, the altruistic part of this is just taking these little pieces out of our head and saying like, hey, so you guys seen this before? Is this something new? Like, did I just manufacture this myself?
Is this should I get this checked?
Is it supposed to be?
It's sticky. Why is it sticky?
Why is it oozing? What is it oozing? Don't ask questions. Yeah, you know, you pull these squishy things out of our head and you know, that again, getting to kind of the human condition of this thing. Is this all of us? Do we all have these? Should we all have these? Should we be having more of these? Is this something that we need to have on a weekly basis? Just like, who am I? Okay, off we go. You know?
Yeah. And I
Just
think
to kind of have
I
that
think
check
that
in.
is a good thing to have, that check-in of, you know, I started doing a lot of writing from it too, to really try and get this out of where are my values coming from right now.
Nice.
And that's something that I do feel a lot of us should be doing, because it is really shocking and eye-opening when you start to, you know, and the first things that kind of come out, I found, for me anyways, were actually these, kind of very superficial things that I realized were kind of fed to me and were not actually my underlying values at all. And so for me, it helped to, you know, put this all down on paper, and I filled like a notebook, and until I was like, okay, get rid of, literally purge out all of this crap. But it did seep in.
Yep.
Right. And no wonder, like, we're all just going around with our brains in like a bit of a fog, because that's what it felt like, you know, where I was like, oh God, I don't know where I am anymore. I don't know which way is up, which way is down. You're just all kind of fumbling about until you fall over something, and you're like, oh, cool. Is this what I need?
Was this what I was looking for? I don't even remember.
Yeah, I've totally forgotten.
I'm in the wrong room even. It's like, I could have sworn we were doing something else.
But it is really crazy when you know, get to those underlying, what do I believe in? What do I want? You know, as me, as
Or
Kristen.
need.
Or need.
Yeah.
Right. And all of the things that we think we need, once you really start to, you know, question that, you realize most of it is not a need. Most of it is something that you've been conditioned to think you need, right? But it's becoming so muddled that this is where we're at. It's a very dangerous kind of society at the moment, because no one kind of really knows, again, which way's up, which way's down. Who am I?
Where are we going?
Yeah.
Who is society? This is, you know, and that's a question. Now we make the existential, you know, take this into a larger thing. Like, what are we building? What's the end goal of this society we're building, right? Like, if it's not the media that's defining where we're going, the relationships are, and what do those relationships look like? You know, is it something that we're now, you know, now that we're aware that social media is a problem, are we now trying to build these better communities around other things that actually have that community, actually have that connection, you know, actually have that ability to build something together? You know, where, you know, it's here, of course, here on the Suburb Podcast.
Absolutely.
We're building this community here. I was leading to it, but I figured I would jump right in there, right? Just before somebody was like, oh, "What's talking about?" But that's, you know, it's a matter of trying to find these places where we can have the you know, just a rational conversation, you know, and just try to tease the logic out of some of these things to find out whether it's actually something that, you know, is this society what we want to have? What is, you know, what would be the best version of it that we could build? What would that look like? If we could just remove all the poverty and hatred and all the things that are holding us back from all this, what would our ideal place look like? You know, where not just you, but everyone had their piece of something that, you know, you're not going to make everybody happy, but everybody could at least grab something tangible on, you know, that they could just grasp hold of and say, this is me, this is, and thank you for like, you know, and we just let people nurture that and just have this, you know, and you want to grab another thing, go for it, right? Like we've got enough, there's enough things to go around. This is the problem that I have now, where we just have built this scarcity into everything as if there wasn't enough to go around, but there really kind of is. We've just been withholding it and only letting certain people have parts of, you know, instead of allowing it to be something where,
well,
you know,
we're also told to hoard, you know.
well, that's, yeah, unfortunately it's
like,
they will
hold
take
on
it
to
away.
yours because that guy over there is going to try to take it from you.
Well, that's the scarcity end, right? Where they don't have enough in the first place. If they had enough to not have to go and steal things from other people, then why would you bother, right? Like, or let alone, like, if I took it from you, well, what do I care? I've got 3 more. Right? Like, go ahead, take one. I don't know. I'll go, you know, like, let alone that you've left yours open. So I'll go and just, right? Like, we just have this thing.
Well,
where,
that's it. Building a world where it's more, okay, you need something.
Yeah.
I have it. Here you go. And at one point I may need something. And, you know, instead of this, it's mine and you must, you know, pay for it in this way. Or it's very strange.
Well, and social media, I think, fuels a lot of that, right? I mean, there's always been, you know, those who wanted the luxurious things.
Well, sure, yeah. Oh, yes.
All the sparkly things, you know.
Very fancy. These are actual, genuine
Indeed.
crystal plants, people.
Indeed. I grew them myself from real crystals.
We're all about the luxury here.
Indeed. And I'm wearing my, you know, got my dress-up clothes on. You can't see the leather pants, but they're beautiful.
You can hear them, though, apparently. It's the next best thing.
I'd show you my butt, but nobody wants to.
All of the requests were, we just want to hear Aaron's pants. You know, the show's great. We just don't hear enough of his pants.
Indeed.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
All right, so
should probably, I guess, leave it
existential.
at that. Existentially, no easy answer.
We're going to, yeah, exactly.
I mean, we could just probably keep going further and further down this rabbit hole.
Well, and again, this is going to be an ongoing existential crisis series that we will be having, where every episode will just be a new crisis to deal with.
Yes.
And
welcome to the Crisis Show.
Well, again, part of building this community is you know, recognizing we're all in this together and we're all having these crises. It's not like, you know, any one of us is having less crises than anyone else. We're all kind of, unfortunately, in the same boat, and that boat does seem to be headed in a direction that
is a really good point, actually, because we do kind of have a current climate of comparing crises. I don't know if you've noticed this. I've certainly noticed it, where it's kind of like, oh, you know, someone has something to vent. They're struggling with something. And the immediate response is almost like, well, that's not so bad. Think about, you know, so-and-so
that wasn't so bad. Think about the Holocaust.
Right? Well, there are comparisons.
I did
like
have to
this
just go down that route,
time.
didn't I? Yeah.
And it's always, you know, like the whole, oh, someone has it worse than you, so you need to shut up. So it's almost not okay to talk about, you know, like, I guess my struggle could be seen as trivial. It's, you know, I'm not dying, I'm not, you know, but it's still a very valid struggle. And I know that all of you have gone through, you know, little periods of this. And it's not about, you know, the scope, I guess, of the crises. It's real for you, and they're all 100% valid, and we should be able to have these discussions, and we shouldn't be met with, because that's a shut down argument of like, oh, you don't have it as bad as this person, so, you know, stop complaining, right? And then what does that do to you? You know, what does that do to your sense of self and identity that you're struggling with already? It's like, okay, well, that's helpful.
Absolutely.
Well, I feel like that's a whole other topic.
See you next episode. Tune in next time.
But yeah, chime in, please comment, and let us know about, you know, if you've struggled, how you felt about it. Have you felt like you're not able to speak? Have you been shut down? What tips do you have for helping yourself out of this? You know, what tips do you have for connecting with other people?
Yeah, is it just as simple as turning off the phone, or like, is that even possible?
Oh, I was going to say, is that even an option? Because I think for a lot of people, most of our world now has to be conducted online, right? So it's tough to really just shut it off. So then
Let
how do
alone,
you work within it?
yeah, absolutely. How do you make it so that it's something that is working for you instead of
Hmm.
against you?
Hmm. Suggestions are welcome because Lord knows we don't have the answer.
Help us, please.
Please do our job for us.
Well, if you've got the answer, I'd love to hear it because, like I said, we've listening to the experts. They are still in the same boat, unfortunately, where they're still struggling. So, yeah. So I guess we'll just wait for them to tell us the answer. We're in their land of no easy answers now. Ha ha!
Well, thank you very much for joining us, everybody. And we will see you next time for the next existential crisis.
Indeed. Follow, do all the social medias. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, all the stuff.
A little bit contradictory after that whole episode.
Connect.
Spend less time on social media, but also follow us on social media.
Our very
only spend time with
and
us.
community-led, community-driven social media.
Yeah. Anyways, we're gonna end it there before we dig ourselves a hole. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Have a good night. Have the best one.